Good morning, Deputy Prime Minister.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we've got 15 minutes set aside for your submission. We have heard from a number of submitters. So you're welcome to make some statements and leave some time for questions. I think Andy's keen to ask a question.
Well, I don't intend to make a long submission because I suspect you've heard from a range of experts already. Reality is the industry's on the pickup. And whilst everybody has got great economic plans for the country, our job is to go industry by industry and do a whole lot better. And as we collect those together over time, we'll find this economy's turned around. So for this purpose, it is to turn our racing industry, I won't use the expression about being back on track, to make it what it should be. We've always had the view that we could be doing twice what we're doing now. If you compare it with Ireland, we should be doing a whole lot better. And we can. So that's the purpose of all our planning here on in.
Who has questions? Can you get to Kitty? Oh, we're going to go first.
That's all good. Thank you. I might have to ask you one.
Thank you,
Members
Minister.
of the don't ask questions.
Thank you, Minister. We've been hearing quite a few submissions from those in the sports sector about the appropriate percentage of revenue that is effectively returned back to the codes, and quite a call from them to have that basically increased as a percentage of revenue based on what they perceive or understand as or can demonstrate the sort of sports betting vis-a-vis the racing pure betting. What's your response on that?
Well, from a historic point of view, we never had those disputes and arguments in a former time when they were allowed sponsorship by both tobacco companies and liquor companies. And the Labour Party decided that was morally wrong. Well, I'll just give you some facts here. And I'm not arguing the point. I'm just saying that since then, there's been a contest as to who's getting a fair share. Perhaps we should be better and more cleverly designing a outcome where there's a whole lot bigger pie for people to share rather than fight over a pie that's not growing with the speed it should be going.
The other question is, this will obviously introduce the legislative need. Did you think about using other levers at the same time? For example, why not reduce the cap or number on poker machines that fall within the space of the TAB as to offset some of the concerns that have been expressed?
I think it was circa 1989 when the Labour Party brought all this stuff in, if you recall.
It's a bit young then.
A lot of questions. A lot of questions were asked about that. We have to live with what we've got now. And frankly, we are open in terms of what this outcome of the Select Committee might be. I'm not coming here with a fixed mind, but at the same time, whatever the outcome is to be, it's got to be in our national interest.
Yeah, Tim.
Good morning, sir. We heard from the TAB about virtual betting on racing and also on other sports. And I just wonder if you had a view on if that would sit outside the bill or where you see the future of some of the virtual racing as a way to raise money to support the industry in New Zealand.
Every new idea such as that, including AI, comes with enormous concern as to what can go wrong. But I think we've got to be ultra cautious, but nevertheless examine whether there's a reality and whether we're trying to catch up with what's already going on. And, I am concerned that opportunities we did have, we didn't take up in the past, such as, for example, putting cameras on a horse or a jockey so that the whole crowd can see from the jockey's back what was going on. We had that chance and we blew it. So here comes a chance here, and whilst some of us naturally say, look, be careful here, what I would suggest is take all the views, have an examination, let's dispassionately see whether this is a realistically objective target or whether it's fanciful. So we're not, as I say, it's not me to say this, but we're not ruling it out because I suspect there is a category of people, mainly young, who are way ahead of us.
I have a question just based off a lot of the submissions we've had, which is around the monopoly component. And so we've heard from consumers, we've also heard from some alternative providers that operate in Australia and the like around that monopoly component and whether that's actually beneficial to consumers who use the product. So just interested in the process that's happened behind the scenes around that.
Well, there's an old Maori saying that we pay the price, we pluck the duck.
That was a good explanation.
It's a
I should ask.
clear response.
Yeah,
It's, yeah.
Well, I'd have thought for the National Party, this would be horribly attractive. Standing up for your country and your industry.
Oh, I didn't say I wasn't.
Andy,
But
yeah.
Can I ask one question, which is around, we've been asked, a number of points been made about the governance of the TAB. Now, I know that it's appointed by the minister, so you appointed that, but there's a requirement, as I understand it, to have a certain number of people who are nominated. There's a skills base. It's a requirement to have a certain number of people who are nominated by various racing industries, the three branches at the moment, as it is. And I've got sort of different views about whether there's a requirement to have somebody nominated by sports codes or not. And it's just that, because a lot of them are saying the voice of sport is not being involved in the administration of this.
Well, they were saying that when at the time the Minister of Sport was the Minister of Finance, Grant Robinson. So sometimes allegations are made that just totally unfair. The number one voice was sitting at the end of the cabinet table with the pen and the checkbook. So that couldn't be true there. I mean, at the end of the day, we can have all these squabbles, which I'm afraid is sadly a case in racing, and we've got to stop and start saying, let's make some serious progress as other countries who realised how far they were down and how they turned it dramatically around. And we've not got a great record of rationalisation, common sense on these matters. And Thaddeus McCarthy wrote a report, I can't remember how many years ago, followed up by a Massaro report not so long ago. Same thing almost in substance. And here we are trying to get through the industry that needs to rationalise in their collective interests. So it is frustrating, but having people on for more representation is fine. But the moment you say that about sport, which area of sport will you have them on? That's when the arguments will
So
start.
I understand that.
Yeah.
There's stuff
Yes,
on
Celia.
that.
Yeah.
So, Minister, thank you for your time this morning. Looking
I
at
didn't
that
have
representation.
I didn't have a choice.
Really,
It's called accountability, right?
following on from that question, do you see that there would be a statutory role for appointing somebody from Sport New Zealand, or do you think that the allocation of an appropriate proportion then going to Sport New Zealand to disperse would be a more effective? Where should the decisions be made on the sports allocation? And do you think it's important that it is related to the revenue they generate from sports betting or the need of the sport, which might be a different model of participation?
You began by following on from what you said, Christchurch?
From
It
the
was the
question
governance
of
question.
having sports bodies
Yeah.
represented on the TAB, and I think your point that which sports body was absolutely spot on. So should it be Sports New Zealand that's represented on the TAB, or should they just wait till they get a disbursement?
That's an extraordinarily difficult question to answer because, having representation is one thing, but having serious representation, people of skill and talent and commitment, that's something else. And boy, we've seen it in this industry over the years of decades being lost or enormous amount of money being lost on experimentation. So I don't know how to answer that question, but I think it's for them to find out beforehand who they want, whose voice who they want to represent them. And I don't envy that person. It'd be extraordinarily difficult.
Because I guess the question that's come up today is around where the mechanism sits for the allocation, because currently it obviously sits at the TAB and with negotiations with the codes. Whereas there has been some suggestion that it could be put into regulation, secondary legislation, so put into a different place, I guess. And that, I mean, I think there's lots of different ways you could, skin the cat or phrase,
Yeah,
but
well, I don't think any of us would be enthusiastic about starting a new body.
No.
to eat up more
No,
of
no, no.
resources.
Yeah.
I think we'd be interested in appointing the most capable and talented group we possibly can. Funny enough, I'm not saying to ingratiate with some of you, but this is an industry that lacked serious female representation. Of course, it's about entertainment. Not sitting on the rail scratching a bum as so many men do, but getting people involved and getting young people into the game. And I was fascinated to go to Ireland and see there what they had done with one area of their industry where they had so many syndications made of hair salons and all sorts of women's businesses. And it was huge. I come back here and, drive past Ruakaka and I find the sign for the next meeting is hiding behind a bush that's grown too high. And nobody thought, well, maybe we should cut the bush down and move the sign. Frustrating. I didn't ask for the job, by the way. No, I didn't.
Any more questions? Anything further you want to, any
Yes,
Councillor Winston,
I
to
want to
impart?
invite you all to the big race on the 8th of March in Auckland.
Okay,
All right?
yep, well, I'm sure we'll be.
What's
And
it?
then
Actually, no, it's,
Promise me two things, that you'll go to that and
Sorry.
also you'll turn up at 4:30 in the morning when they're shoveling all the stuff out of the shed to see what the other end of the industry looks like. And how many young people with so much love horses, that's all they want to do.
I would, but one of my staff is getting married, so I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Not getting married at 4:30 in the morning.
Thank goodness. All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Minister, thank you. And thanks everyone. We will now go into private session.